1 Introduction. The C language provides no built-in facilities for performing such common operations as input, output, memory management, string manipulation, and the like. Instead, these facilities are defined in a standard library, which you compile and link with your programs. The GNU C library, described in this document, defines all of the library functions that are specified by the ISO C standard, as well as additional features specific to POSIX and other derivatives of the Unix operating system, and extensions specific to GNU systems. The purpose of this manual is to tell you how to use the facilities of the GNU C library. We have mentioned which features belong to which standards to help you identify things that are potentially non-portable to other systems. But the emphasis in this manual is not on strict portability. 1.1 Getting started. This manual is written with the assumption that you are at least somewhat familiar with the C programming language and basic programming concepts. Specifically, familiarity with ISO standard C, C ISO C, rather than traditional, pre-ISO C dialects, is assumed. The GNU C library includes several header files, each of which provides definitions and declarations for a group of related facilities. This information is used by the C compiler when processing your program. For example, the header file stdio h declares facilities for performing input and output, and the header file string h declares string processing utilities. The organization of this manual generally follows the same division as the header files. If you are reading this manual for the first time, you should read all of the introductory material and skim the remaining chapters. There are a lot of functions in the GNU C library, and it's not realistic to expect that you will be able to remember exactly how to use each and every one of them. It's more important to become generally familiar with the kinds of facilities that the library provides, so that when you are writing your programs you can recognize when to make use of library functions, and where in this manual you can find more specific information about them. 1.2 Standards and Portability. This section discusses the various standards and other sources that the GNU C library is based upon. These sources include the ISO C and POSIX standards, and the System V and Berkeley Unix implementations. The primary focus of this manual is to tell you how to make effective use of the GNU C library facilities. But if you are concerned about making your programs compatible with these standards, or portable to operating systems other than GNU, this can affect how you use the library. This section gives you an overview of these standards, so that you will know what they are when they are mentioned in other parts of the manual. See Summary of Library Facilities, for an alphabetical list of the functions and other symbols provided by the library. This list also states which standards each function or symbol comes from. 1.2.1 ISO C. The GNU C library is compatible with the C standard adopted by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, American National Standard X 3.159 1989, ANSI C, and later by the International Standardization Organization, ISO, IEC 9899-1990, Programming Languages, C. We here refer to the standard as ISO C since this is the more general standard in respect of ratification. The header files and library facilities that make up the GNU C library are a superset of those specified by the ISO C standard. If you are concerned about strict adherence to the ISO C standard, you should use the ANSI option when you compile your programs with the GNU C compiler. This tells the compiler to define only ISO standard features from the library header files, unless you explicitly ask for additional features. See Feature Test Macros, for information on how to do this. Being able to restrict the library to include only ISO C features is important because ISO C puts limitations on what names can be defined by the library implementation, and the new extensions don't fit these limitations. See Reserved Names, for more information about these restrictions. This manual does not attempt to give you complete details on the differences between ISO C and older dialects. It gives advice on how to write programs to work portably under multiple C dialects, but does not aim for completeness.